Cool.
So we're diving right in because you just got to listen to the piece that we chose to go before your episode. This is so much fun to me. Like, one, I get to catch my guests like fresh out of the the Thea Matrix, right? Which is fun. But also we're like whatever lines from that poem are fresh on our memory, or that piece, like whatever made us choose that for this episode, like it's kind of like a guiding, ushering into what we're going to discuss. And I want to properly introduce you because Jessica Schaffer began, I met her through the Blacker the Brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful because there was a little voice in her head that apparently Oya planted that said, check on your strong friends. And she reached out to me and said, is there anything, I could do for you at a time when, oh yes, there was so much that you could do for me, because you're the first person I met that frames it this way, but you do nervous system reset work. And since we started that work, our conversations about how, oh God, we got to decolonize the nervous system, and how we judge it and how we judge our responses, right? Because of capitalism, because we're in a white cis het, blah, 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 capitalist society, how that makes us falsely believe that we are disconnected from that nervous system, but also believe that we are not experiencing what we're experiencing, for lack of a better word, right?
100%. Yeah. Do we have our body's consent?
Yeah. Oh, see, she says things like that to me, and then it's like, what? And an end in our time has also birthed a whole new offering to the world through these amazing, beautiful, intentional, real, authentic, grounded greeting cards that have words that we think but don't always say, much less put on a greeting card, with images that also we may not always see associated with those words. And so it's like a really beautiful, authentic form of expression if you're looking to convey something, which, we know cards are meant to do, but they often will be like kind of fluffy. And some people, they would choose fluffy over authenticity. And so I love that. And I love that that's work that you're tapping into. And I see a correlation between the two work that you do. And so we'll talk about that. But let's start with the premise of this piece that we even opened with, which was, can a wild Black thing be loved? And of course, Black can be, that can be any marginalized identity, anything that falls outside of the construct that we find ourselves in America. And we use Black as an all-encompassing term in this sense, but also as a literal term for Black bodies. And that question that sparked me even writing this work, that is sparking us even recording this series, is because it really has felt like in this Black body, in this woman body, I cannot expect and should not expect to be my freest, most liberated, wild self and loved. I have to choose between that version of myself and love. And that does a number on my nervous system.
As it should.
As it
right?
should.
Yeah, who should have to choose that? Right?
How do you choose that?
You can't. I mean, you can't.
Oh, you can't sustainably, and yet we really try hard to. We really try hard to be loved by being less of who we are, or by compartmentalizing who we are. So in your work, like, that's my language for it, but in your work, what is some language that you would use for that phenomenon that I'm discussing?
Yeah, well, I think that phenomenon, it in part comes out of the imprinting from cultural values and how we've been socialized, for sure. And it's so ancient. I mean, it's so many centuries ago. If we could tap back into that remembering in our cellular structure, which it's there.
It's
right?
there.
But there was a time when we lived as extensions of the natural world.
Yes.
We did not live as projected personalities or ego structures or thought forms. We lived as expressions, organismic expressions of life, right? And so there is in all of us, somewhere in our inherited memory and the intelligence that lives in our bodies, there is that memory where we were more than a brand or right, or an image on social media or whatever. And so I think for me, the language that I put around it, and when you and I originally talked about having this conversation, one of the themes we wanted to address was embodiment. And so, you know, when I think about what embodiment is or what it means or what how it expresses, for me it has a lot to do with presence. And when I talk about presence, I'm not just talking about presence as in like how we're showing up in our thought forms. I'm talking about how are we showing up inhabiting the cellular structure of our physical body. So are we in alignment with the narrative and the story that our body is expressing in the moment? And so for me, that's a big part of
narrative?
Can we even hear it?
Can we even hear it? Can we even? So that's the thing. Like when you say that, what I thought about is the nervous system is the thing that let us know we are attached to the natural world still. The nervous system is the thing that it was the extension, the branch, or I keep picturing, I wish some people could see me if they're watching this on YouTube, but you know, like a vine, you know, like there's some plants that like, they kind of vine out and that's how they spread and grow. And so that vine from nature to us would definitely connect to the nervous system, would definitely plug in to the nervous system. Yeah. So here's the thing, within that nervous system is the data to feel the truth about your space, your role, your place within the natural world. And at the same time, that is where they have begun to hijack you.
Exactly. It's both.
It's both.
And just even in morphing off of that image, right? I love that image of plants that vine. And you think about the nervous system itself in its entirety. If we were to look at it anatomically, it is a web.
Yes.
A matrix inside of us. And so, it's a perfect analogy. But I think for me, the nervous system is the gateway to a deeper expression of our expansive self. So, a lot of times we think of it as this very mechanistic thing, right? And it can be, we can talk about it that way. But to me, it's a little bit that idea of, as within, so without. Like the deeper you go into the molecular truth, the more expansive you are on a cosmic level.
Right. You find another universe. There's a universe in a universe in a universe in a universe.
It's a fractal.
No matter which way you go, there's just more universe.
Exactly. No matter which way you go, you're going to end up in the same place, which is everywhere.
Yes.
Right? And so I think of it as this gateway to an expanded experience of self. So I do not think of it mechanistically. I think of it as like a multidimensional, it's the scaffolding that allows us to be spherical in our existence and to access many different layers of self, which are all integrated. To be multidimensional. Yes.
So someone who's using it mechanically, like capitalism, and teaching us about it in a way that is mechanical, can easily convince us that this gateway to our highest, most expansive self has these limitations, and can also convince us that it can be overwhelmed and overloaded in a way that makes it so that we almost avoid and we begin to seek ways to numb it, which means we are even less attuned to this natural role, natural place, natural voice that we have?
Yeah, I would say, so in my nervous system work, 100% of the clients that come to work with me in the beginning, they come feeling like there's something wrong with them. So this
Absolutely.
isn't it. This is
Same
an
thing with mental health.
example.
Same thing with
Yeah,
mental health.
this is exactly what you're saying, right? Like there's a narrative that, can I swear on this?
Oh my God. Have you ever heard me? You know,
There's a narrative that we're fucked up, right? That
yes.
something's wrong because I'm anxious all the time, or I have a hard time doing this, or when I do this, my body does this. And the first place that I start with every single person, and you know this
Yes, I do.
from what we've done, is to just reframe that entirely, which is to say there's nothing wrong and there's nothing broken. This is exactly how your body is supposed to behave.
It's supposed to behave. You saying that to me, I can't even, it made me go back. I just remember one of the early things you taught me that changed everything for me was, oh, then your nervous system is working. You're not, I was like, what? You're not supposed, because even toxic wellness teaching and all this stuff will say, then, don't let anybody ever move you from your peace. And listen, and when you taught me, well, if that don't happen, how do you know your nervous system is working when you're actually in danger? Like, it's supposed to protect you. It's supposed to do these things. You need to know that it can go from, safety and peaceful to amped up, let's fight, or amped up, let's run. Like, you need to know that. And for it to be healthy and ready for those moments, it needs to be able to fluctuate. And I can't even tell you the way that blew my mind up, because working in mental health, being around wellness culture, toxic wellness culture, this very kind of puritanical whitewash culture of ideas where there's no divine feminine, there's no shadow work, there's no hidden work, there's no darkness. Everything is like, light and fairies all the time, made me feel like if I had that fluctuation, it was because I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't doing the right coping. I wasn't manifesting. My mind wasn't focused. It was just all blame, shame, judge, buy this.
Yes. And that's part of, that there's an industrial complex in wellness, right? Which is so toxic, as you're saying. And so, I think it erases all of the complexity. So I think, what I've always thought about the nervous system work that I do is it's really about helping people reconnect with the beauty of complexity and with
uncertainty
and having the capacity to trust our ability to navigate that complexity, that uncertainty, the range of contrasting experiences that are alive inside of us all of the time, because life is A, it's complex, B, it's uncertain, and 3 or C, if anybody pays any attention to what's going on in the world's not safe. Like that is just a reality, right? So we can't change that, but we can learn how to partner with our bodies in a different way that allow us greater resourcing and a greater sense of internal engagement and empowerment, so that we feel that there's a pathway through that reality for ourselves that does not ask us to diss ourselves or throw ourselves under the bus or to think that there's something wrong.
That piece about it, navigating, I really think, actually, for me, you taught me that I didn't have to navigate. You taught me that I can just be with it and partner with it, and that was sufficient. So I've learned so much about not just allowing, but being with my feelings and noticing my capacity to feel multiple things at a time, and without judgment and without canceling them out. So it's really taught me coexistence. Even that piece about, like, the world is not safe and the world is safe. It's both. It's both at the same time. And the reality is, the world being safe or not safe is really, it's really still down to my perception, because even if somebody's standing in front of me threatening me, I don't know that my mind will immediately register that. The mind, there's like this delay. Like there's like this, your mind and it does so many different things so that you can have the clarity of mind to react to certain situations. It's so interesting how it serves us, even when we're not able to serve ourselves, right? That it's like, we can be in situations. I think that understanding of myself as a multifaceted, multidimensional, coexisting in energy field amongst others that are that, and other things that are that, and it goes on and on and on, made me feel like, calm down. You're never gonna like really figure this shit out. You know what I'm saying? Like calm down. Like, it made me like sit back in myself and be like, oh, bet. Like, yeah, I'm not supposed to figure this shit out. I'm supposed to like be with my shit, be with my world, my universe. I'm supposed to be with the things that are orbiting around me. And then comes trust that this massive amount of moving and organizing and pieces and that the universe is holding is doing its work.
Yeah, well, that's, I mean, so going back to that idea of like the web, right? An extension of the world, the natural world or the cosmic world. I think about our nervous system. To me, it's like one of the deepest expressions of our wild self, because it's going to do, I mean, it's not going to edit itself ever.
No, it'll just harass the shit out of you. Like you said, people will say it's anxiety, it's depression, it's ADHD, it's all these different things. And really, it's your nervous system bucking.
It's your nervous system giving you some really viable information. And it's got great information to share all of the time. And it's really about, can we cultivate the ears to hear it, the understanding to understand, to be able to digest the information that it's trying to convey.
I take my glasses off.
Right. So it's the wildest part of ourselves, and it's the most honest part of ourselves.
Most honest. It's the part that knows exactly who it is and where it came from and what it's here to do, and will not let us do less than. So part of what I wanted to explore with you is the damaging impact of being in a society that gaslights you and gaslights your nervous system when it responds with this vital information, but there's no framework within the system itself to allow us to process it as helpful information. Instead, it's symptoms, and it's a diagnosis, and it's a problem. And so then we silence and lose that data. We don't lose it. It's always available. But I had someone say to me the other day, you know, I've been diagnosed with this, and this, and this. And what do you think about that? And I was like, oh. I said, I can't help but wonder, if you were born in a different society, would you have this, and this? That's how I feel. I feel like if you were born to a group of people that loved you in a tribal setting, or in a community that loved you and took the time with you to say, they don't respond well to this. Let's try something else, or let's see what that means, or maybe let's lean this way, and took the time to explore and experiment with you, that you would feel loved. We would find out what your true gifts are. You would be walking in your authentic self, and we would all be better for it.
Absolutely.
And so I think about part of why we're doing like the hold a sacred work, right? Is we realize, I can talk about this all day here on this soil, in this space, but people still got to go back to this construct. And so there's this idea in my spirit that, let me take them somewhere where I can incubate them, and they can be in a space where they can feel that call back to that natural, organic, wild self. And then part of my work there is to then show them how to protect it when they go back. And each time, you know, bigger, more and more. But I don't think I want us to explore this, because I want people to release themselves from this judgment and start to listen to what these neurological responses are saying. So if you taught me, I would text you and be like, okay, I don't want to do nothing today, but I said no. First I learned I'm overwhelmed. I learned to use my words. I'm overwhelmed. And you taught me that that's a good thing, because now I've gone from safety to activated to overwhelmed. And that's good to know that you're there, because now you can give your body what it wants.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would text you and be like, well, it wants a blanket and pizza. You said, go get the blanket and the pizza then. And I'm not supposed to have pizza. Black people lactose intolerant. And you'd be like, well, today you go to have a pizza. And I would just say, okay. And I go to pizza. And I would.
And did you feel better?
I did. And here's the thing about it. Like, it really, even that, like, even the limitations on what we can reach for to feel better is like, you're still thinking like within the construct, as opposed to like, it's just pizza, right? Like, don't overthink it, just enjoy the pizza. And so that piece, even what we reach for, there's so much judgment. There's judgment in the cure, perceived cure, in the perceived treatment. There's judgment in the diagnosis, the judgment in all of it. And all I can think of is how that all moves us further away from what you are bringing us closer into with your work.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much power in just kind of demystifying all of it. So if we can understand how the body works, it's not, I mean, it's complicated, but it doesn't have to be. It actually can be pretty simple. If we can understand that our nervous system is driving our thoughts and our behaviors and our relational engagement and all of it, it's the scaffolding that everything else rests on, then we can start to just sort of track at that level, and it changes our perceptions of things. So, you were talking a little bit earlier about sort of the diagnosing that happens in Western mental health. So, you can look at all of that diagnosis from a nervous system perspective too. And so take it out of the realm of diagnosis and just say, well, when somebody's experiencing depression, one of the things that's happening, it might not be all of the pieces, but one of the things that's certainly happening is that they're in a nervous system that has been deeply overwhelmed. Too much information of any kind for too long will shut us down, right? And that is an adaptive survival response. Anxiety is a nervous system that is trying to, juggle a lot of mobilization energy that wants to express itself from running away or fighting off things that don't feel safe. So if we can start to just look at things as, do I feel safe or not? And how, and what degree of not safe am I feeling in this moment? It totally changes everything, because it takes it out of that realm of judgment and diagnosis and something's wrong, and it puts it back into the language of the body, which is, I'm feeling safe or I'm not feeling safe. Right?
Yeah.
And when we're not feeling safe, we're either feeling like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Or I got to neutralize what's happening, or I need to shut down, meaning it's too much and I don't feel like I have any capacity to manage it. So I need to just quiet everything down. Right.
And all that feels like it's intentionally done, or we're misled from that information that you just shared, or misdirected, because we're taught to fear the wild things. So it's interesting, like even on a instinctual level, part of us leans into the diagnosis as an identity, because to go the other direction and to say that this information is valid, it doesn't have a judgment, it's here to bring information and we can use the information, leads us back to the wild thing. But here's the thing, though, we've been taught to fear our wild thing. Right. So what I've experienced in mental health is this fuckery where people have been so taught from young to fear being outside of the box, to fear being different, to fear, standing out, to fear being unique, to fear all these things, to be too much of this and too much of that. And you're punished in school, you're punished by your parents, you're punished in your neighborhood, all these different ways, you're bullied, whatever. All these different things teach you that wild equals pain, wild equals loneliness and isolation. And so it's easier for me to believe that something is wrong with me, and that I can lean into that and I can point to that and say, oh, that's why people are doing what they're doing to me. That's why I'm made to feel this way, as opposed to kind of going the opposite way and like going behind the veil of what they said and finding out for yourself if the wild thing is what they say it is. And it's not. Right. Even those who are around us, the teachers and the preachers and the parents, they too were taught that their wild thing was something to fear, to run the opposite way of, and to go completely in the other direction. If you can't function and that your nervous system is acting up and it's sending you all these messages while you are trying to do the quote unquote right thing and be a good citizen and a good person and a straight A student and a good worker and a good employee, if your nervous system can't handle that, something's wrong with you. And you can point to that and maybe get some sympathy. But if you were to go the other direction and be the wild thing, you would be betting on yourself, and we're often afraid to risk that, right? Because we don't know what's on the other side. We don't know what's on the other side of it because we're so far removed from it. But I will say that through my work with you, I thought I was living. I thought I was living because I was creating things that mattered, that was positively impacting people. I was having a positive impact on people. But I wasn't having a positive impact on myself. And my wild thing was bucking. And the more I did externally for the world, the more I bucked. And the more it was like, I was still very dissatisfied. I couldn't taste it. I couldn't taste the joy I was creating for people. I couldn't taste the love. I couldn't taste it until I trusted the wild thing, until I said, I have walked this way. Ooh, I get emotional thinking about it. I've walked this way for 40 years. I've walked this way. And if I've walked this far for 40 years and still not tasted what this life is really, really about, I see it. I can bring it to other people, but I don't feel it for myself. I have no choice but to walk the other direction. I have no choice but to go the other way. And I had to partner with someone like you, because left to my own devices, what happens in the system is they set up these little booby traps. And you know what I mean? Like there's like these little, it'll be, your friend will say something or your mom will say something, and these little booby traps. Like it's kind of like the other piece that I shared with you, where it was like, get the family involved, right? If you can't tame her on her own, hand the shears over to her family, let them start plucking at her feathers. And they don't mean to, but they'll be like, oh, you didn't do this for me, or you didn't do that for me. And you get the community involved, and you get other people to start pulling at the feathers,
or planting seeds of doubt,
or planting those seeds. And then to keep walking, I do think of the story about Oshun, because there's a story about Oshun. I'll give the light version. Essentially, we had a problem. We had a problem on Earth. And some of the Orisha came down, the male Orisha came down to help fix it, but they couldn't fix it, and they were just diminishing the fact that Oshun could. They wouldn't even give her a chance to try to help. So Oshun was like, fine, I'll just go. I'm not needed here. Well, Oshun is fresh water, so where she goes, so does fresh water. And so she disappeared. And they had to go to Olodumare and say, hey, we're trying to solve this problem. People are bringing us offerings, but we can't resolve this issue. We don't know what to do. And he's like, then we send Oshun with you. Isn't she over the water? Right. So they had to go back to her to ask about, to humble themselves and go back to her, who they had underestimated and devalued. And that's what I found I had to do with my wild shadow self, who knew exactly what her power was, who knew exactly what she was capable of. But the parts of me that you talked about, that projected persona that was acceptable to society, kept putting her in the back seat like she didn't know what she was doing. And when I went to Spirit finally, it was like, hey, this is not moving forward. It's like, didn't I send you with what you needed? Where is the other? Where is she? Where is she? Right? Oshun is amazing. There's a story about her prayers that they were trying to get up. People needed something, and nobody could get it through to Olodumare. Nobody could get the message up to Arun. So she turned herself into a peacock, and flying past the sun, of course, her feathers had to singe and burn, and she kept going and she kept going. And by the time she arrived there, she was black and a vulture. Right. And I think about that when you're going back to your wild self, you do have to go through that fire. It gets ugly and people may pluck. It can, and people may pluck, but you have to keep going until you reach basically the foot of your own altar. and be like, I'm sorry I abandoned you here. I didn't know what I didn't know. Please come back with me, you know? And then you really held my hand throughout this whole part. You still holding my hand. You still holding my hand. Jessica was
We're
still
doing
get a
it for
random
each
text.
other.
Yeah, Jessica would still get a random text like emoji. And she's like, do you need to talk? I'm like, yes, please. How did you know? Was it the emoji? But the first time I could taste and see and feel, because I was my whole self, it felt like I knew what it felt like. I knew what the intention and the purpose behind my nervous system is, which is a full life to experience.
Yeah.
You know, for wonder and like exploration and quandary and all these wonderful things.
Yeah. And it sounds complex, right? Like returning to your wild self, but it's actually not that complex. It's about making enough space to just listen to what is the simple truth that our body is telling us in this moment, and how do we work with it. That's really what it's about. That's
and
what
believing
opened
that
door.
truth,
trusting that
truth. So like when I said, we're gonna keep it simple, when I said I need the pizza, right, instead of just going to get myself the pizza and trusting that that's what I needed in that moment, I had to call you and be like, is it okay to get the pizza? Because I was a baby, you know, I didn't yet trust that instinct, because I had been told if I crave something like that, it's for unhealthy reasons. Right.
Instead of just allowing, right? I think I think no matter what iteration my work has taken over the last 30 years, I think at the core of what I've tried to do for myself and for those that I've worked collaboratively with, it's really about allowance, right? It's about giving ourselves permission to be the experience that we're having and not need it to be other, to just
anything
other than what it is in that moment.
Oh, Jessica, you make it sound so simple. I know it is. I know it is. I know it is. I know it is as simple as you're saying. Like, say it again.
It's space for us to give ourselves permission to be with what is in the moment, the truth of what we're experiencing,
and nothing else,
and nothing else, just for that moment. For that moment.
That's so much, because I know for a fact in my own life, and you know, I like to think I do a lot of fucking work.
And you do. Let me just say.
But even in my own life, I am recognizing that all of my discontent comes from not accepting what is. It's like, I don't want to do that, or I don't like that. My body's telling me that. I trust it. Now we're to the point though, when my body tells me, I'm like, bet my body said no. My body said no. I trust it, right? But in that understanding, now that I have that step, I'm realizing what you used in the beginning was consent.
Yeah.
I have been moving without my body's consent all my life. And now that I'm not doing that, the part in my mind and emotions and heart, I have to make sure I sit with, well, is that, and what is okay, even if someone else does not like it, even if it's not what somebody else wants. Because guess what? Even if they don't like it and they don't want it, it is. Them not wanting me to feel that way, don't make me not feel that way. It just don't work that way. It's just not true. And in Akila's episode, one of the questions we left with was, what if what my spirit is telling me is true? And what I hear in this episode is, what if I believe my body? What if I when I listen and I
what
hear
my
it,
body was saying?
What if I just believe it? What if I don't think twice about eat the thing, do the thing, you know? But I trusted my body. And I think the other thing I want to, because I could just hear people like, what if I want to go out there and do blah, 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 blah. Yes. Let me just be ready.
I'm hearing it too. There's a qualifier here.
That know the difference between your body and trauma responses. And so this is where I want you to tap in there too, because there's your authentic body and your natural body self. and there's your trauma responses, and those are
Absolutely.
different.
Yeah. And I mean, if I had my druthers, we'd live in a world that um, integrated nervous system awareness into how we did everything, right? How we raised our
Mhm.
kids and how we engaged as a community. I mean, it would just be part of, and I think we did used to live in a world where
Yes, absolutely. We've
that
talked
was
about
it,
that. We've
we didn't
channeled
have to
that.
talk about it.
Yeah, we've
It
channeled
was
that.
part, yeah,
Mhm.
it was how we were. So
Mhm.
yes, that's such, as you were saying that, that was the same qualifier I was hearing. I think it's incumbent on us to
Mhm.
actually learn how to hear the
Mhm.
truth of what our body is conveying, and to do that work, right? To actually be able to unpack, like, what's going on when I'm feeling
Mhm.
these sensations, or when I'm experiencing this behavior, what's actually happening at a deeper
Mhm.
level. I talk
Mhm.
about it as cultivating autonomic awareness, right? It's this
Mhm.
idea of understanding what these autonomic responses are really about. So it does take, I think, a little bit of education and a little bit
Mhm.
of um, kind of deepening. It's building a deeper relationship with your own body. But
Yeah.
once you have that framework, it is uh, it is quite easy to actually layer that
Mhm.
awareness into your day-to-day awareness.
And
So
trust
yeah,
it.
this isn't just about like whatever whim we have just going out
Right.
and
No. I would
satisfying it.
say I think the first layer of me starting that work was yoga. I've said this
Yeah,
to you, was yoga was the first layer. And then Reiki was the
yeah.
second layer. The third layer was breath work, which, we
Hmm.
had Dr. Crystal Jones on, and
Yeah,
the breath work brought me into the nervous system work.
yeah,
And so although those were steps, because we
yep,
are very tapped out of what our body is saying. And some of us are on hot, some of us are on cold. So it's varied, like how you listen and what you'll hear. What I always tell people is how I know the difference between a trauma response and like my authentic body response voice is that my authentic body response usually comes with like a lot of peace. I
hmm,
hear it, I'm like, yeah, that's right.
hmm.
That's right. But my trauma one will be like, there's like there's energy around it. There's like a
Hmm.
static around it.
A
Like
static, yeah.
I could say, no, you know what? I'm gonna call this person and I'm gonna let them know because I have a right and this is what my body wants. But then all that extra, all that head rolling and all that is like the static, right?
Yep, yep, yep.
Whereas if I'm like, you know what? I feel like I want to tell them how I feel about this and that we should have a conversation. That's the clarity. So
Yeah,
there's this static energy attached to the trauma response. It's like you can feel it in your body. You're amped up, as
yeah.
opposed to this like calm that you
Mhm.
feel when it's, like, no, I feel pretty good that I can make this choice for myself, that my body needs this. I'm gonna trust my body and move on after that.
And for you, part of that journey is that you can feel the static now because you understand also a little bit of what's going on in your nervous system. So you
Mm-hmm.
know how to kind of work with
Cycle it.
that
Mm-hmm.
dialogue, cycle through it so you get to a place where there is an opening and there's a little bit more clarity. I think the really important thing for us to say here too is that we are all unique, and how we're
Mm-hmm.
wired and what our
Mm-hmm.
experiences feel like, right? So for one person, a trauma response is going to feel X, Y, and Z,
Mm-hmm.
and for another person, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a totally different
Yeah.
experience, right? So that's why it's complicated, right? It's
Yeah.
there aren't like quick templated answers that can be
Mm-hmm.
applied universally, because it really is a journey that's different for each
I
person.
remember that's what Crystal Jones said about the breath work too. I was like, we ain't got nothing we can lead the people with just to help them. And she was like, no, it's just kind of
Yes,
like
that's
it's kind of an individual inquiry. And I want to also say here that the illusion of time and living within a capitalist system that with a sense of urgency all the time
yeah, yeah,
can really make you feel like you don't have time to do this level of work that
yeah.
but really it's not a lot of time.
It's
It's
not a lot
really
of time at
learning to
all.
pause and just be with things. I used to do this thing before I even knew about the nervous system work, particularly with couples or parents and their kids, where like if somebody made you upset, I would have them pause for 20 seconds before they said anything. That 20 seconds, what they were doing is like, okay, like what just happened, giving themselves a moment to orient. And then I would say, if you can wait 20 seconds, you can wait 20 minutes. And then I would say, because if you give yourself 20 minutes, then you'll know how you feel and what you want to say, and it'll come out very different than if you had said it before taking that 20-second break. Then sometimes, depending on the situation, I would say, and if you can wait 20 minutes, give it 24 hours before you speak on it. Most of the time when they got to the 24 hours, they didn't even, it was gone.
Yeah.
It was out of their system. And it wasn't that they repressed it or suppressed it. They just allowed themselves to feel what they felt, to let it give them information. And then based on the information, they decided, oh, that really wasn't about them. Or, I was just in a bad mood, or, whatever it was. And if they still wanted to talk about it after 24 hours, they knew that it was something that really had hit a true place, and it wasn't just a reaction to something. But that was even before I knew about nervous system work, because I think we think we don't have the time. I thought, and I do think this takes changing your relationship with time. To do this work, to do this work intentionally, you have to change how you think about time. If you're a person that feels like time is dragging you around, you're going to always say you don't have the time to do this work. But once you start to play with time, like taking a pause in the middle of a conversation for 1 minute and seeing that the world doesn't end, like just playing with it a little bit, you realize, oh, I do have the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the work is really, they're micro interventions, really. I mean, if looking at things from a nervous system perspective, the quickest way to tune the nervous system back towards safety is to focus on present moment sensation through a pathway that feels supportive to you. And we're all different. So for some of us, that's focusing on something in our environment, looking at something or listening to a sound, focusing on a scent. For some of us, it's letting our body move a little bit and just being with the rhythm of the movement. For some of us, it's touching something, holding something in our hands and playing with it, right? So, but if we can do an inquiry, right? We start to play with, what are those sensory pathways that I actually enjoy, that make me feel good, that soften me? And we just learn how to pause for a moment, even while we're in a conversation, right? And to actually feel something in our hands, for instance, if tactile sensation is anchoring for us, we can start to work with our nervous system a little bit differently just by inviting some present moment sensation.
I love that.
Right. So that's something we can kind of leave people with.
Good little something.
The possibility of an exploration. And of course, there's a lot of complexity to that, right? We can make it more complex, but that is a place where people can have their own kind of personal inquiry of starting to notice, what do I like? Do I like looking at something for a few moments?
It's similar to the joy work, right? Once you do the joy work of joy, helps you figure out what you like and what you don't like. When you do the joy inventory of, in a 24-hour period, how much of the stuff did I do because I wanted to do it? How much did I do because I felt like I had to do it? And that does the same thing. It kind of creates like the idea of choice, the idea of some form of
curiosity,
being able to shape and be curious and shape the experience.
Exactly.
It invites that in. I also think that I'm pulling away from this. Also similar, I see patterns shaping up already through the season, is that our wildness is cellular. It's never going to give up on us. It's relentless, and thank God it is. And so because our wildness is cellular, the antidote for this taming, this colonized, what you called projected persona, which I loved, the antidote for that is also in the cells with the wildness.
Absolutely. There is no way to it without partnering with our bodies. I mean, we cannot bypass our bodies.
You cannot.
We're not going to find it outside of our bodies. We have to invite them forward as our guides in reclaiming that, because it is alive in our mineral selves.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
The memory of it is there somewhere in our
the
DNA.
data, the canon of all that time. And I also think that for something to be wild, it is also unique. So you cannot look to the right or the left. What
No.
we're inviting you in is to a self-inquiry, right? We can tell you, we can share our experiences of what worked for us, but that is not something that you could apply to yourself, because the definition of being wild is that it can't look like everybody else's, which is why scrolling on certain media platforms, the worst thing anybody can say to me is, well, they said, or they're doing, I think I immediately look like you just slapped me across the face, like you don't know me at all. I hate that. I hate to do what other people are doing, actually. But at the same time, we all fall into that. And so your path to your wildness must be unique. And that is so beautiful and essential to the diversity of the ecosystem that makes us a thriving world.
Absolutely.
A rose cannot be a carnation or a pine tree.
Nor would we want it to be.
Nor does it want to be, right? It doesn't even think about it. It doesn't even cross its mind. It's like, I'm good, right? No other form of nature is out there with envy, trying to be something it's not, or looking like for, a salmon's over here trying to be like a dolphin. Like, that's not happening. We are of that. That is us. Yep. I loved what you opened with. I loved it. And I want us to like kind of close with that, remembering is that's how we started. Your name, your identity, your multiple identities, your categories, your roles did not exist. We were single-celled organisms birthed in the water, and none of that existed, and it still doesn't actually exist. It still is not real, right? It only has the consciousness that we give it, the belief that we give it. You are still what you are in yourselves. And I would spend more of my time sitting in curiosity and wonder about what that is than anything else they're telling you to check a box about.
Absolutely. I'm with you in that.
I love
and that journey. I mean, the complexity of what we find when we're willing to sit in that inquiry is unbelievable. I mean, the intelligence and the creativity and the genius that is inside of us is mind-blowing.
For you, you've been doing this work for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you apply it to yourself.
Oh, yeah.
What still surprises you about you? What are you still learning about you in this curious journey?
Yeah. So first I would say, yes, I mean, my body is the laboratory for everything that I've ever taught. So yeah, I mean, I practice everything I teach. And I guess the thing that still surprises me is that I'm still surprised every day by what I continue to uncover in my own inquiry of self. I had a conversation earlier this year, maybe it was about a year ago, with a friend, because I lost my mate, my 25-year partner, a year and a half ago. And so in that first year of acute grief, there was a lot of untetheredness. There still is, but it was quite acute then. And a friend of mine said to me at one point, it sounds like in all these changes, you don't really know who you are anymore. And I kind of bristled at that. And I said, no, I know who I am, but part of knowing who you are is to recognize that there's more to you than you know. And I think that's the wild self that speaks, right? And so the thing that continues to surprise me is how much more there is.
Yeah, listen. That is the thing you're much more than you know. Let's just sit with that for a minute. I love that. Yeah. What a gift. You're much more than you know. You're much more than you know. That is just a truth. I can just hear that echoing around my cells. I always talk about the moment I went into the Red Sea and opened my eyes. Specifically, I remember hearing, look down. And sometimes in this country, while you're trying to climb up, you don't look down. You don't look back. because that's the, the white linear mind, which we talked about, Ebony and I have talked about, that doesn't want to look back to see it's not circular. It doesn't believe in cycles, but looking down, right? And when I looked down, there was I think the most liberating thing that happened was I said, oh, I don't know shit. What the fuck do I think I know? I know nothing. Nothing. And it was life-changing. It was refreshing. It was, it energized my appetite, my curiosity. I can never know. And so I get to spend this whole life just trying to chase the potential of knowing a little something. And there's so much little something to know, right?
Yeah.
Because what I understood in that moment was, these fish have been here and this stuff has been here and I didn't know. Yeah. And not only that, but 70% of the earth is underwater. So I'll never know. And then 90% of that is unexplored. Yeah. No fucking way to know. Right. And if that's what's outside of me, that's also what's inside of me.
Absolutely. So right. I mean, isn't it like 90% of our DNA they call junk DNA because they just don't know.
Just because they don't know.
Rational brain, they haven't navigated it with understanding yet. So, I mean, any territory, right?
Everything is possible.
Environment that we explore has that component to it. I say every day, it's a refrain. I mean, there are moments throughout the day where I just say, I have no idea. Like, I don't know anything.
Clue. And it's thrilling.
Yeah, it's thrilling a good place to live from.
It's a wonderful place. Let me tell you, it's so much better than I know everything. Oh my God, yes. I know everything. If I can convince you all of nothing but to pack your bags and move from I know everythingville to I don't know shit.
Well, I think that is the difference between kind of a colonizer mindset and a wild mindset.
Yes.
The wild mindset says, I don't know.
I don't know. I just experience. And here's the thing, whatever I experience also when I come back to, it's going to be different. It's going to be new. So I don't know. I just experience. And like, that is really the amount of, you can see it in our faces. You can hear it in our voices, how just talking about living in the unknown is the most exciting aspect of life that I've ever encountered. And it is because I don't know. So I can never say for sure, which means everything's on the table all the time. And so here's the best part, I think, about the nervous system work for me. The work with you and reconnecting with my nervous system and reclaiming my wild self has given me the confidence I needed to know that I can hold a universe in this body and not hold it in like a I'm responsible for it type of way, but in a I get to experience this universe of a body and this universe that exists outside of my body. And what the nervous system work made room for by getting rid of the junk and the judgment and the fear is expanding my capacity to experience, release, to taste, move forward, to be sad and happy at the same time in the same day. I tell people I can go from yellow to orange to green to blue to red and purple all in the same day, and I don't think nothing of it anymore. I used to think, oh, I started the day yellow, I should have to end the day yellow. No.
Yeah.
I get to be a range of things. And I know that my nervous system is healthy because I can experience the range.
That's right. And those words that you said, that it's helped you grow the capacity, right? That's what it's about. It's about having the capacity to hold that range of experience. That's it right there
delicious.
In a nutshell. Yeah,
it's delicious.
It's pretty good. And, also to say, like, life's hard, right? Like, there's challenge. Transformation is not romantic. It's kind of brutal at times.
Okay,
and
Jessica has looked at my cards and been like, "Ooh, that's a lot of Okay.
That's a lot.
We're here.
That's
We're
a
in
lot
it.
going on.
We're in it.
But I think that it's also beautiful, and that ability to have the capacity to hold that complexity and that range, that
Yeah.
is really what it's about.
I
That's
think
what
I
it's all
said to
about.
you one day, it's exhausting, excruciating, and
Mhm.
exquisite.
Mhm.
And I am so grateful to my nervous system that I can be present for all of that.
Mm.
It's
It's
making a
beautiful.
wonderful life. I will make sure that you all, because I know you've fallen in love with Jessica like the rest of us. So I will make sure y'all have information on how to reach Jessica and learn more about her work and learn more about her company and her greeting cards and the work that she's doing. And I can't thank you enough. The reason, I'm bringing people on who I have these wonderful conversations with to myself anyway, and sharing them with others, but also who have been a part of this transformation for my wildness. And so I'm giving you your flowers now in front of whoever listens to this. You literally answered, you said yes, you trusted your body, you trusted your nervous system, you trusted Oya, and I am eternally grateful for that and what you've helped me to co-create.
It's been such an honor. It's such an honor to collaborate with you, Thea. And thank you so much for welcoming me into this conversation. I love conversing with you.
We couldn't have it without you. And we still in this. So, check your text in case I have yourself a
Absolutely.
wild buddy. Have yourself a wild buddy, just because my wild buddy helps me to stay wild. So thank you so much. And I hope you all really enjoy and take your time with this delicious episode of Shaping the Shift.